you joined this team late. These guys have been together for like a year planning this thing, and you just kind of slotted in, and you fit the bill. Now Andy and I, we work a lot on team diving, right? And it's, for us, it's really important that when you're doing any dive, really, not just a dive of in a cave or in a wreck or a deep technical dive, any dive really, you're working with people that you kind of trust, right? And you know that, you know, when things are going bad, when things are going to go wrong, which they can do, and let's be realistic about this thing, it can be a risky sport. The rewards are great, but the risks are also quite great, or can be. So we try to minimize or mitigate those risks, and we do so by diving with people we trust. And you know, it's really important when we, you know, the sort of diving that Andy and I do. Andy and I do a lot of diving. You and I, Barry, have done a lot of diving over the last 16, 17 years that we've known each other. And you kind of get that feeling like, actually, I know this guy would react how I would react in a given circumstance. And you kind of have that mutual understanding. And I think that's really important. That's a disconnect. It
was quite funny because, you know, here I'm arriving late on the scene. The first time I meet Ryan, he doesn't know me, I believe, for a bar of soap. At that stage, I don't know him. We're kind of both looking at each other sideways because we've got to go into this cave system. So we both kind of do, you know, like a tri dive as such. You know, you jump in the water and swim around. We're both watching each other. But I'm actually diving with a side mount harness, which I haven't even really set up properly, and it's all over the place. I can see Ryan's eyebrows are really lifting up. He's going, "Oh, we got a real plonker here." And you know, I had to go back and sort my blooming the harness up, so it was all, you know, doing what it should be doing and everything. And the second dive, I'm looking a lot better. You know, the harness is starting to work, and then I'm starting to get all my stuff. But that took me nearly a day of diving, 4 dives, to actually just get that blooming harness into a configuration that was doing what it was supposed to be doing. And Ryan started starting to relax a little bit. So we didn't just jump in the water and disappear into these caves. You know, we took some time just kind of swimming. Avon is quite a big cave, and it's got some really it's a sinkhole as such. It's the roof has fallen down, and you've got some really interesting sites around the base of the sinkhole before you go into the tunnels and stuff like that. But we took some time just kind of getting used to each other and making sure that we were happy with each other and the way we dived, and because that was really important, because later on, you know, if you think about it, you're going into these caves. Yes, there's all these beautiful items on the floor and everything, but the floor is full of silt, and you just have to touch that bottom and it silts up completely. So, you know, you're working in a new cave, you're working in a situation where the silt up is especially when we're in the small sections trying to get these bones where we found the most. It was inevitable. By the end of the dive, it was silted up. And now the two of us had to get out of this, and to get out through a very small crack where you're having to push one cylinder forward, you've got your head like this, you're squeezing through a crack, and you've got to go up this corkscrew tunnel, you know, and hopefully making sure that nobody gets stuck in between, and in complete blackout by the end of it, because you know, you're in such a small space. There's 2 of you trying to map out things, and no matter how hard you try and how hard just a hand movement starts the silt up. So you're trying to draw something, and then you want to maybe churn, so you just maybe you fin at the back, but that fin, because you're in a small space, creates a ripple on the roof, which then goes down on the floor and then creates a spiral of little dust coming up. So by the end of each mapping section, we had to leave that section for like 2 days before we could go back there for that silt to settle before we could actually do anything. So we switched between Avon and another cave called Matao, between the two, and they were about 200, 300 meters apart from each other. One was completely black walls. Everything about the cave was black. The walls were black. The silt was black. The stalagmites, stalactites were black. Everything completely black. And the Avon, which was almost all white. Everything was white, and you know, so you had these two extreme caves which we were switching between, and really interesting. But going back to the trust, the last part of the expedition, the scientists wanted a stalagmite that was close to where the bones were, and they wanted it from where the ground rock was. And we found that was about 1.5 meters of silt, so we had to go down through all the silt and then get this stalactite out. I think I sent you some pictures of that stalactite, which was cut up into it was cut lengthways so they could see the aging of it. Really important, because you know, you go into caves and you always try not to touch this, not to touch that, don't break this, and here we are being told to go and retrieve one of these, you know, by the scientists. So quite a different experience in that regard. Trying to get a stalactite off the bottom with a hammer and chisel in complete blackness takes some doing, I can assure you. First of all, neither Ryan nor I realized they wanted one of these. Now, the one they chose was nearly 2 meters, just over 2 meters, 2.2 or something like that. Here, they had to break it up to ship it, unfortunately. So these are the parts, and you can see the lines. The part on near the zero is the bottom, and the part on that little scale up in the 100 is the higher part. So that's 10 centimeters. You can see there just 10 centimeters of rock.
Yeah.
Think about it's 2.5 meters now. It is heavy, hey? It really is heavy. And we hadn't brought lift bags to lift these things, so we had to go and get 25-liter drums and turn them upside down and then fill them with air. And so we filled them with air, and we agreed between the two of us not to put too many lines in, because the more lines you have, the more, you know, entanglement you get. So we had one line from Ryan to the main line, then from me, a line from me to Ryan, and that was it. But we had to work together, so we had we didn't want the line so catching up. So the line had 2 hooks, one to shorten it, so I could unhook one and lengthen the line, or pull it up and shorten it so it wasn't dragging all over the place. And we used a fairly thick 10mm line, so it was easier to work with than thin line, because thin line can in water, if you're moving around, it can actually get into blooming granny's knot. Anyway, so I'm at the bottom. First of all, I decided to go down and start to chip away at the base of this, and I'm chipping, and I couldn't. If you ever try to use a hammer and chisel underwater with nothing to hold on to, it doesn't work very well. So eventually I found something, a rock behind me I could wrap my legs around in the silt, and I started to chip away, and after a while I got pretty tired. Now it's complete blackout. You cannot see a thing. And I signaled to Ryan, I pulled on the line, it's his turn, and I gave him the hammer and chisel, which was our signal. And again, we did a lot of planning on this. We had mapped the particular area of the cave out considerably. We had looked for if there were any other cracks or crevices which would lead into any other holes. It was a one entrance in, one entrance out. So we were pretty well prepared to work in the black, and we'd actually even practiced blacking our masks out, making sure we could get in and out. So we'd done a lot of preparation before we did this. And that's really, really important. So I'm down there now, and like inevitable, things go wrong. So he started going down, and I was trying to get up, and the line hooked. So I unhooked it, and as I unhooked it, he was trying to pull, and he pulled it out of my hand, and the line was gone. And I thought, oh, well, now I've lost the line to him, but I have got my hand on this big stalactite, which was fine. But as I held it, it rocked, and the whole thing broke off, and me and the stalactite went straight up onto the roof. Now the roof didn't have any other stalagmites or tights hanging down. Didn't have any of those hanging down, so it wasn't like we were going to damage the roof or anything. And also the amount of air and the weight of this thing, we had estimated. You can't really calculate because you don't know the weight of this swimming thing. So we had estimated we needed 4, and it actually just lifted it up. So it was just touching the roof. So it wasn't like stuck to the roof. It was just almost neutral, but slightly positive.
So you attached it before you chopped it off, right? You attached these barrels and put the lines around it.
Yes. Yeah, you have to, because you can't do it afterwards, because if it falls down,
it would fall down and then
yeah. So we tied them all up. So we had one at the bottom, 2 in the middle, and one at the end. So Ryan's gone down now. He's just about to chisel away, and the thing breaks off, and because it's black, he didn't even see it. So now he's looking. He's looking for it, and it's gone. He says he couldn't find this thing. Now he thought that he was in the wrong space. So he now starts looking around for it, and he's saying, what the hell? And then he found a small one, and he realizes it, and he goes, touches the top, and no, this is not it. So he starts looking again. Meanwhile, I've actually gone up onto the roof of this particular cave, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I've got to get, what do I do now? Do I drop a line down? Do I not drop a line down? It's completely black. Do I tie a line off to the stalactite and go down to the bottom looking for the other line? Can I look to the main line near the surface? Can I reach it? No. So it was really difficult. And I decided just to I wrapped my legs around the stalactite and stalagmite, and I started to pull myself along the roof. And eventually I came out of all the silt. I managed to get the stalactite, push it through to all the scientists. I went back down along the main line, put a search line on, and went searching for Ryan. And he was still looking for the lost stalactite, and then for me, because he realized then that he had lost me. So he was getting a little anxious, and then I grabbed his fin and said, "Hey, here I am," type of thing. So when he pulled it, when I got him out, when we swam out, I should say, he said, "How the hell did you get that thing out?" Because it was now out. And he said, "I knew I'd find you some stage, but it's just a matter of when." So it was quite an interesting expedition there. So when I went back, I took new gas with me, because we had actually put some spare cylinders just up the tunnel in case of a situation. So when I went back, I thought maybe he would need some. So I took that back as well. So lots of preparation. And I think it's only because of the preparation that we did that actually the situation wasn't bad. If you hadn't done that preparation, then I think the situation would have been much worse.